What if the exact peace you have been desperately searching for tonight is hidden inside a profound, ancient secret to letting go? You are lying there right now, staring into the dark. Your room is quiet, but your mind is deafening. The ceiling has become a projection screen, playing every anxious thought, every unresolved problem, and every fear about tomorrow. You are exhausted. You are tired of trying to hold everything together, tired of overthinking, and tired of trying to control a life that constantly feels like it is slipping through your fingers. Every attempt to force yourself to sleep only tightens the knot in your chest. But what if the way to finally rest is not by fighting the current, but by surrendering to it completely? Thousands of years ago, a profound reality was recorded in the book of Psalms. Psalm 29, verse 10, tells us, Yahweh sat enthroned at the flood. Yes, Yahweh sits as king forever. It is a breathtaking image. In the middle of the most devastating, earth-shattering chaos imaginable, God was not pacing. He was not panicking. He was seated. And if he is seated over the flood, it means the very waters that threaten to pull you under tonight can become the exact place where his grace holds you up. We spend our days desperately trying to steer our own ships. We are burdened by the constant demand to figure everything out, to navigate the unpredictable waves of our modern lives. But to understand how to truly quiet our minds today, we must first travel back thousands of years. Not to a calm, sunlit pasture, but to the most violent storm in human history. To find the stillness you crave tonight, we must step inside a dark, heavy vessel made of gopher wood, where a family sat in the pitch black, completely stripped of control, listening to the rain wash the old world away. Imagine the dry, cracked earth of the ancient world. The air is thick, heavy with dust and the sharp, earthy scent of freshly cut timber. For decades, under a scorching sun, a man named Noah has been working with heavy, dense gopher wood. Genesis chapter 6, verse 14 in the World English Bible tells us the exact instruction he received. God said, "Make a ship of gopher wood. You shall make rooms in the ship, and shall seal it inside and outside with pitch." Imagine the sheer magnitude of this task. Year after year, Noah worked amidst the echoing laughter and relentless mockery of a society that had never even seen rain. He was building a colossal, absurd structure on perfectly dry land. But building the frame was only half the work. He had to seal it. Picture the dark, thick, sticky substance boiling in heavy pots. The pitch. With blistered hands and aching shoulders, Noah smeared this heavy black tar over every single seam, every jagged joint, and every microscopic gap. He sealed it from the outside, and then he walked into the dark belly of the ark and sealed it from the inside out. He had to ensure that not a single drop of the coming destruction could penetrate the wood. As we lie awake in our beds tonight, we must ask ourselves, are we not trying to do the exact same thing? We spend our days desperately trying to waterproof our own lives. We plan for every contingency. We over-prepare for conversations that haven't even happened yet. We try to anticipate every possible disaster. We build our careers, hoard our savings, and construct elaborate emotional walls. We exhaust ourselves trying to patch every potential leak in our future, hoping that if we just prepare enough, if we just worry enough, the floodwaters of anxiety, failure, or heartbreak will not be able to reach us. But the exhausting truth of the human condition is that no matter how hard we try to seal the cracks of our own lives, Human effort always leaves a gap. We lie awake in the dark because we are secretly terrified that we missed a spot. We feel the crushing, lonely burden of being our own ultimate line of defense. The anxiety you feel in your chest tonight is simply the exhaustion of trying to be your own savior. But there is a profound, breathtaking secret hidden within the ancient Hebrew language of this story. The word used for pitch, the thick, black substance that kept the ark perfectly safe, is the word kafar. Or, in the biblical text, this is the exact same root word used over and over again for atonement, for covering, and for reconciliation. The pitch was never just tar. It was a physical, tangible picture of divine grace. Tonight, you do not have to be the one to seal every crack in your life. You do not have to waterproof your own future. The grace of God is the kafar, the perfect covering that surrounds you, inside and out. It is the atonement that seals you from the floodwaters of this world. When the winds of uncertainty howl and the rain of tomorrow's demands begins to fall, you do not need to panic. The grace that covers you is entirely impenetrable. You are allowed to stop working now. You can finally rest your weary hands and your racing mind, knowing with absolute certainty that the covering holding your life together is not made of your own frantic efforts, but of His perfect, unfailing love. The sky bruised into a deep, terrifying purple. The air grew impossibly still, holding its breath just moments before the very first raindrop fell against the dry dust. As the distant rumble of thunder echoed across the valleys, the time for building was finally over. Noah and his family gathered inside the massive wooden structure. The animals were secured. But there was one final, crucial detail to this moment of transition. A detail so profound it changes everything we understand about safety. Genesis chapter 7, verse 16, in the World English Bible, records this quiet, definitive act. It says, "Those who went in male and female of all flesh, as God commanded him, and Yahweh shut him in." Noah did not close the door himself. He did not pull the heavy timber shut, hoping he had secured the latch tight enough against the coming winds. The hands of the Creator Himself sealed the ark. With a deep, echoing thud, the heavy wooden door was closed from the outside, plunging the interior into shadows. In our own lives, there are few things we fear more than a closed door. We spend so much of our energy desperately trying to wedge doors open, terrified of missing an opportunity. When a season abruptly ends, when a job offer falls through, when a cherished relationship suddenly finishes, or when a sudden illness forces us into isolation, we often feel a profound sense of panic. We stand in the dark, pounding our fists against the wood of our circumstances, begging for the door to open just a little wider. We experience a kind of spiritual claustrophobia. We feel trapped, restricted, and confined by the narrow spaces of our current reality. We have been conditioned to believe that open doors are always a sign of blessing, and that closed doors are always a sign of punishment, failure, or divine rejection. So we fight the closure. We exhaust ourselves trying to pry open what was meant to be sealed. But what if we could shift our perspective in the quietness of this very night? What if the door that recently closed in our lives wasn't slammed in our faces out of anger, but was gently pulled shut by a hand of absolute love? There is a vast, beautiful difference between being imprisoned and being hidden for our own protection. when God closed the door of the ark, He wasn't trapping Noah in the dark. He was sealing him away from a destruction Noah could not fully comprehend. The closed door was the ultimate barrier between the fragile family inside and the chaotic floodwaters outside. Tonight, you can stop fighting the closed doors. You can lay down the exhaustion of trying to force your way into spaces that are no longer meant for you. The limitations you are experiencing right now, the narrowness of your current season, might just be the very walls of grace keeping you safe. You are not trapped. You are sheltered. You are deeply loved, tucked away, and preserved from storms you may never even know existed. As you breathe in the stillness of this moment, allow the darkness of your room to become a sanctuary rather than a prison. You have been shut in by grace, and in this hidden place, you are entirely, perfectly safe. The fountains of the great deep burst open, and the windows of heaven poured out their fury. As the torrents rushed across the landscape, the massive wooden ark began to shudder, groan, and slowly lift, breaking its contact with the solid earth for the first time. Inside, Noah and his family felt the ground tilt as they were raised upon the rising tide. But if we examine the divine blueprints given for this ancient vessel, we discover a striking, intentional omission. There were no sails to catch the wind. There was no rudder to steer through the crashing waves. There was no captain's wheel, no oars, and no compass. This was not a ship designed for navigation. It was a vessel designed solely for preservation. Noah, a man who had spent decades actively building and working with his hands, was suddenly rendered completely powerless over his own direction. He could not turn the vessel away from a terrifying wave. He could not choose the destination, nor could he predict where the journey would end. He and his family were entirely, completely at the mercy of the waters, carried by a current they could neither see nor control. We so often find ourselves in the quiet of the night, trying to do exactly what Noah could not do. We lie awake in the dark, gripping an invisible steering wheel, desperately trying to navigate the uncharted waters of our lives. We toss and turn as we try to steer through next week's finances, next month's career pressures, or the uncertain future of our children. We replay endless scenarios in our minds, wondering how we will survive the next wave, or what we will do if the storm gets worse. Our overthinking hang gem is nothing more than our hands gripping that imaginary rudder, terrified that if we let go for even a single moment, our lives will capsize and sink into the abyss. We live in a culture that worships the illusion of control. We are told that we must be the masters of our own destiny, the captains of our souls, and that our safety depends entirely on our ability to outplan and outmaneuver the chaos of this world. But carrying the weight of the future is a heavy, crushing burden that the human mind was never designed to bear. The exhaustion we feel tonight is the sheer psychological fatigue of trying to navigate an ocean we were only ever meant to float upon. We are worn out from trying to calculate paths through storms that haven't even arrived yet. Tonight, we are being invited to do something radical. We are being invited to take our hands off the wheel. We can relax our tightly clenched fists, release the tension in our shoulders, and lay down the exhausting burden of trying to figure everything out. The vessel of our life doesn't need a human rudder because it is already held secure within the sovereignty of God. The waves that look so overwhelming to us are completely under His feet. We do not need to know where we will land or how tomorrow will resolve itself. Our only task in this season is to trust the current of His love. Let us lean into the quiet rhythm of His grace, knowing that He is holding the destination. We can close our eyes now. We can surrender the direction of our lives to the one who has never lost a ship at sea. And we can finally drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. For 40 days and 40 nights, the sky did not simply rain. It unfolded. The relentless downpour became the constant, unchanging backdrop of existence for the small family inside the vessel. Outside, the world they once knew was being entirely dismantled. Cities, forests, and the highest mountains were slowly swallowed by the rising, featureless ocean. The sheer scale of the destruction was unprecedented, a chaotic symphony of wind, breaking earth, and roaring water. Yet, inside the thick, resin-sealed walls of gopher wood, that terrifying cosmic roar was filtered, softened, and transformed. Through the dense timber, the catastrophic storm outside became a steady, rhythmic drumming on the roof. It became a heavy, hypnotic beat, a low murmur that filled the dark, warm spaces of the ark. Within that enclosure, a strange and holy stillness settled over the family. The chaotic noise of a dying world could not breach the boundary of the pitch. Genesis chapter 6, verse 16, in the World English Bible, reveals a fascinating detail about the design of this sanctuary. God commanded, "You shall make a window for the ship, and you shall finish it to a cubit upward." Consider the deliberate placement of this single opening. The window was not placed at eye level. There were no side portholes for Noah to look out across the horizon. He could not look back at the world he had left behind, nor could he look down at the rising devastation, or out at the terrifying height of the waves. God intentionally restricted the horizontal view. The only vantage point available to the inhabitants of the ark was looking straight up toward the heavens. Even when the clouds were at their darkest, the only direction Noah could gaze was toward the dwelling place of his Creator. We live in a world that is constantly flooding our senses with horizontal noise. Every day, we are bombarded by a relentless downpour of information, breaking news, social media updates, and societal pressures. We look to the left and see economic uncertainty. We look to the right and see division, conflict, and the constant, exhausting race to keep up with everyone else. This horizontal focus acts like an open breach in our minds, letting the chaos of the world pour directly into our internal sanctuaries. We become overwhelmed by the sheer volume of things we are expected to care about, solve, or fear. By the time we lay our heads down at night, our minds are drowning in the collective anxiety of a noisy, fracturing world. We feel the weight of global problems and personal pressures crashing against us, and we wonder how we can possibly find a moment of quiet. The architecture of the ark reminds us of a profound psychological and spiritual truth. The human mind was never designed to process the weight of an entire world's chaos. If Noah had been forced to look out a side window at the destruction day after day, the emotional trauma would have broken his spirit long before the waters receded. The upward window was a divine mercy. It taught him, and it teaches us, the sacred discipline of a curated focus. When we cannot change the horizontal reality of our lives, we must change our vertical alignment. Tonight, we can choose to shut the side windows of our minds. We can turn away from the endless scrolling, the unresolved arguments, and the noise of a world in turmoil. We can allow the external chaos to recede into the background, letting it become nothing more than the sound of rain beating harmlessly against a roof that has been built to shelter us. The anxieties of this present world are real, but they are on the outside. They cannot penetrate the covering of grace that surrounds us in this room. Let us imagine ourselves lying inside that warm, dark wooden ark tonight. Feel the gentle, steady lift of the waters. Listen to the rhythmic, comforting tap of the rain against the ceiling. It is a barrier between us and the storm. The noise that once terrified us has been converted by divine protection into a soothing lullaby. We do not need to look out into the dark. We do not need to see what is happening in the storm. We only need to look up into the face of the one who holds the clouds. Let the rhythmic rain quiet our racing thoughts. Let it wash away the accumulated tension of the day. We are enclosed, we are separated from the noise, and we can finally surrender to the beautiful, heavy stillness of a protected sleep. Eventually, the rhythmic drumming on the roof of the ark began to slow. The heavy downpour faded into a light drizzle, and then, after 40 long days and nights, it simply stopped. But the end of the storm did not immediately bring the end of the journey. In fact, what followed the rain was a profound, heavy silence that stretched on for months. The ark continued to drift over a vast, seemingly endless ocean. There was no land in sight. Noah and his family were suspended in a strange, quiet limbo between the world that was gone and the new world that had not yet appeared. Imagine the tension of those quiet months. The immediate danger had passed, but the waiting had just begun. They opened the window. Noah sent out a raven and then a dove, searching for any sign of hope. And then came a moment of breathtaking grace. Genesis chapter 8, verse 11, in the World English Bible, captures this quiet miracle. It says, "The dove came back to him at evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from the earth." Picture that vibrant, fragile green leaf against the dark, weathered hands of Noah. It was not a whole tree. It was not dry land. But that single, freshly plucked leaf was undeniable proof that beneath the dark, muddy waters, invisible to the human eye, life was already beginning again. We often find ourselves in this exact same season of waiting. We survive a terrible storm, a health crisis, a financial collapse, a painful separation, or a season of intense anxiety. And we expect the sun to immediately dry the ground so we can step out and move on. But instead we find ourselves drifting in the silence. The crisis is over, but the resolution has not yet arrived. We are exhausted by the waiting. We look out over the horizon of our lives, and all we see is an endless expanse of uncertainty. We desperately long to feel solid ground beneath our feet, but we are still suspended in the in-between, waiting for a sign that everything is going to be okay. Psychologically, the silence after a trauma can sometimes feel more unsettling than the trauma itself. In the storm, we have adrenaline. In the silence, we only have our thoughts. We grow weary of sending out our hopes, like that little dove, only to have them return with nothing. We begin to wonder if the water will ever recede, or if we have been forgotten in this quiet, drifting vessel. But the story of the olive leaf whispers a profound truth into our weariness tonight. Just because we cannot see the dry land does not mean the waters are not receding. Beneath the surface of what we can currently understand, in the dark, messy, muddy places of our circumstances, God is already at work. Seeds of grace are germinating in the unseen depths. A new beginning is already taking root, even if the waters have not yet fully cleared for us to see it. Tonight, as we prepare our hearts for sleep, we can rest in the promise of the olive branch. We do not need to figure out how the water will drain or how the new ground will be formed. We only need to trust the one who commands the wind to dry the earth. Even right now, as we close our eyes in the dark, a fresh olive leaf is being prepared for our tomorrow. Let us release the heavy burden of waiting. Let us allow the gentle rocking of the water to bring us peace. We can sleep deeply tonight, knowing that the silence around us is not the silence of absence, but the beautiful, quiet space where new life is being formed. Let us take a deep, slow breath in. And as we exhale, let us release the heavy tension we have been carrying all day. Imagine that we are lying safely inside that warm, ancient vessel. The heavy, protective gopher wood surrounds us, strong and immovable. We can almost smell the rich, earthy scent of the timber, and we can feel the absolute security of the pitch, that perfect, impenetrable covering of grace that seals us in from the outside world. Let the muscles in our shoulders drop. Let the tightness in our chests soften. Unclench our hands. As the ark gently rises and falls on the quiet, steady waters, let us allow our bodies to sink deeper and deeper into the mattress. We are not steering anymore. We are not navigating. We are simply resting. The world outside is quiet, and we are entirely held. Heavenly Father, as we lay our weary heads down tonight, we surrender the heavy oars we have been desperately pulling. We are so tired of trying to navigate the unpredictable storms of our own lives, so we ask that you would gently take the rudder from our hands. Wash over our anxious, racing thoughts with the deep, abiding peace of your presence. Remind us, in the quietness of this hour, that we are sealed by your grace, completely protected from the floodwaters of our worries, and held securely in your sovereign love. Guard our minds as we sleep. Let the gentle, quiet rhythm of your faithfulness be the only sound we hear. We trust that while we rest perfectly still in the dark, you are preparing the dawn, bringing forth new life, and guiding us safely toward dry ground. There is nothing left for us to figure out tonight. No more planning, no more worrying about tomorrow. The heavy door has been shut by hands of love. The covering of grace is complete. The water beneath us is calm. Let us drift now into the deep, healing quiet of this sanctuary. We are safe in the dark. We are held by the Maker of the rain, resting, finally, in his perfect peace.